This episode of TWIMMO is brought to you by Audible. For a free 30-day trial, head on over to audible.com/gamebreaker. You'll get a free month and, hell, we'll throw in a free audiobook. Internet, Magic Man here, and you're watching TWIMMO episode 183 for April 4th, 2014. You're watching Gamebreaker TV. Today, we're going to talk a little ESO. We have to, it's launch day. But we're also going to move on and talk about Guild Wars 2 getting mega servers. And then Dave Georgeson from SOE says make it all free to play. All that and more, but the hell happened to my camera? I'm on a little... There we go. There we go. Perfecto. But joining me from last week, you asked for him. He's bringing sexy back to TWIMMO. Mr. Troy Blackburn, New Fridge himself. How are you, sir?
Doing all right. 2 weeks in a row. I think that makes me a seasoned TWIMMO veteran now, doesn't it?
You are a veteran bringing the goatee. No mustache this week, but you brought the goatee.
Yeah, I'm rocking that channel. The big white channel.
All right, so we are going to talk a little bit of Elder Scrolls Online. I know, again, some of the YouTube people on TWIMMO are sick of Elder Scrolls. It'll get its own show at some point, but it's launch day. We got to talk about it. Wildstar, Draenor, you'll all get your time when you come around on launch day here too. But then we've got some other things to talk about, so let's kind of get into it. I don't really want to rehash features. I mean, you and I and Larry Everett talked extensively about some of the endgame PvE stuff we got teased, and the week before and the week before we talked about more details as they came. But today is the official day. My bad boy came in the mail. I did an unbox on Gamebreaker. It's a huge collector set. It really is. I even measured it with a tape measure in the unboxing. So if you're interested in what's in the box, check that video out on Gamebreaker TV. But we've been playing it for a few days now with the early access. Well... the early access that kind of worked, almost.
It's been available some.
It's been available a little bit. So give me your impressions, some thoughts. I mean, obviously there's goods and bads. You wrote a piece on it that was like, hey, it's an MMO launch. We're going to have problems. But there's some that we've just never seen in other MMOs. Let's chat briefly about it. What are your thoughts now that you're actually in-game for real?
There are still some existing problems that at this point I'm still a little surprised exist, such as some of the quest bugs where you can't continue a quest, and some of those are still interfering with main storyline quests and holding some people back. They are better than they were during the weekend beta tests, but they still exist more than I really thought they were going to. Judging by the patch notes, you got the impression that they had found the problem and sort of ironed it all out. So I'm a little surprised to see some of that still existing in the game right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm rolling Dominion right now, and right off the bat, I went back to, what is it? I'm going to mispronounce it because I don't have the spelling in front of me. Kelathari's Roost, or whatever that is. The little noob island for the Dominion. And right off the bat, it was like second quest. I'm supposed to talk to 3 injured Marines on the island, and I talked to all 3, give them all the potions and everything. And the third one I talked to and gave maybe 70 potions to that I found on the beach, but it would not register that I had done it. And I mean, that's like within 5 to 10 minutes into the game. So thank you, Canarthy's Roost. Thank you, chat. That's within like 5-10 minutes of gameplay once you get to the starting zone. So it's kind of disappointing to see those bugs. You expect bugs, but these are long time persisting bugs that are smack right in the beginning of the game. And the only thing that fixed it was fully logging off, not just logging off, but shutting the game down and booting back up and hoping that I would get a different instance of that area. That didn't fix it. So my last-ditch effort was to abandon and retry, and that worked. I don't know. It's goofy seeing stuff like that early, especially when they were so prevalent in beta and reported all over the place. I've changed classes twice now. I don't know about you. I got a little bit in there, and I'm gonna roll tonight and go with Templar because I want to heal. But
Yeah.
I'm being told that the dungeons are fun. The boss mechanics, they're having a lot of fun with the level 12, 13 starter dungeons from some of GBN. The game seems to be well received by people that were already knowing they were going to be fans of this anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's really doing a lot of things right, and it's still having a lot of technical issues, but there's a lot of fun gameplay to be had, and I talked about that in my article last week. There's a lot of fun things to do, and the dungeons are something that my group and I are really enjoying a lot of. Even we've run the first 3 several different times now, and probably tonight we're going to get into the second tier dungeons in the second zone for Daggerfall Covenant. So we're going to try to dive into that and see. I'm hoping that there's progression. There's some big grown-up mechanics more in the next series of dungeons instead of just just kind of pull and kind of do the boss and move out on one thing. I'm wanting to see a little more, but I'm excited to get in, and I'm definitely looking forward to whatever they've got next. And I've been avoiding spoilers all I can. I have no idea what this dungeon entails. We're going to go into it blind and just see what happens.
My beagle does not do a thing unless it's TWIMMO time. It is like the quietest dog in the world, unless I'm recording an episode of TWIMMO. Then it wants to be on the camera and on the audio. It's actually my beagle's on the audio for the unboxing of this bad boy too. But so yeah, there are a few things that are not typical problems with MMO launches that we're having here now. And I thought it was interesting, though, on the flip side of this, that Blizzard, it was like pretty much on launch day was like, hey, oh yeah, Elder Scrolls, by the way, we're doing Draenor Alpha.
Yeah. I think we kind of touched on that a little bit last week.
Like,
surely somebody was going to do something today, and boom, there you go, giant list of alpha patch notes.
Yeah, like 33 pages. They covered them, a lot of it on Legendary last night, but it was just, we knew Blizzard was going to get in here somehow. All right, so the guild store right now is a joke. And I don't think there's any nice way to say that in Elder Scrolls. And an auction house, a good auction house with a search feature, is going to be one of the main things people are going to want right now. The UI I don't have so much of a problem with. I know our producer Dom doesn't like it. I think it's fine. The menu system might be a little clunky, but then chat reminded me episodes again that it's made for console use too. So I kind of understand why the menus might be a little clunky, but overall I don't have too much of a problem with the UI, do you?
No, not at all. Like you said, the interface itself, the menu can get a little odd to interact with. The biggest problem right now is definitely the lack of a search ability in the guild store.
Big time.
Just there needs to be so many more tools available in that right now. You just have to. I mean, most of the time when I go into the guild store, I'm just hitting search all and just start scrolling through to find what I want. I mean, you can kind of choose weapon, two-handed weapon, but you can't search for anything specific. You can't look for certain level items. You have to sort through just everything that's on the guild store right now, and it's just not really all that great. It's just not doing a good job of what it needs to be doing right now.
Not to mention that your own personal inventory and bank leaves a bit to be desired at the moment.
The personal inventory right now is really giving me a headache. Switching over to weapons, I want to be able to look when I'm in my armor. I want to be able to sort heavy armor and light armor, or by level, or at least by level in armor type. And this
or even just the space itself. When you start collecting a bunch of provisions, your bag space is gone. Like that. I mean, there's people in Gamebreaker Nation creating alternate characters just to mule off provisions to them already, and we're days into the launch here. It was 5 days of early access if you got this big bad boy here, or the digital equivalent of it. But it really wasn't 5 days of early access. I mean, at one point, there was a 24-hour patch, and then there were 2 or 3 other maintenances that were a few hours each. I wish those would have been announced a little better. I mean, you really didn't find out that there was going to be maintenance or anything until all of a sudden you were booted from the server.
And they've kind of had this problem with everything as far as getting information out to the players themselves. I know the first time that it went down, when the day that the 3-day early access started, there was a lot of complaining on the forums because we were all on. I was on, and all of a sudden the server was gone, and you get the message you don't have permission, and it seemed like you'd been hacked or banned or something like that. and there was just no warning. And then you look on the forums, and a community manager said, well, we did give 15 minutes warning. I didn't see it. I was on all day, and I didn't see it.
Nobody saw it. And chat's correcting me. It was an 18-hour maintenance, not 24. Sorry. If you were in Europe, it might as well have just been all day, because it really was their prime time instead of ours. I don't know. What about this billing thing?
Man, this is just what they need right now, isn't it? Another little bad PR thing.
I know.
For people
It's
to be
I feel bad for
doing?
pointing out all these little bad things, but it's launch day. This isn't beta. This isn't early access. Granted, they extended the early access, but if you read the posting, it really wasn't because they took the servers down for a while. Most games do this if they have an early access, and they give you a day or two grace period to enter the registration code in case there's shipping delays. So they only really put on Sunday is supposed to be the end of the early access now, officially, of the grace period. So at least they did that. That's cool. I can give them credit for that. But then now we're seeing bank accounts, including my own, charged for their subscription already. So I registered my key. I put my information in for billing. It says, okay, you'll be billed next month, and away you go. And then I looked at my bank account, and there's a $14.99 charge from Elder Scrolls on there. Now, what I heard from a lot of people, and maybe you heard the same thing, was that it was one of those authorization type charges where a company bills you 98 cents just to make sure it's a valid bank account, and then the next day credits 98 cents and the transaction disappears. But pre-show, we saw from people in chat that actually contacted their bank saying, no, this is not an authentication charge. This is a $15 charge.
Yeah, I think the initial reports that it was like an authentication charge, it was people trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. Surely that's what this is. They can't be taking my money already. I mean, we're not even, we got an extended grace period. We're not even to the point where we have to put in our information yet. And you're already trying to take my $15? And I know you're one. There are so many people still trying to decide if they even want to sub to this game past the 30-day point. And here, freaking ZeniMax is already taking their money out of the bank. I mean, that's really going to irk a lot of people in a really bad way. And that's one of those little things that's going to stay with the company for a long time. People will think back, they just went ahead and took that money. Why would they just go ahead and do that?
And there's some in chat that are saying that their charge was put on and then withdrawn. That's great. I mean, that sounds like an authorization charge to me. I know it's still on my bank account, and there's others in chat saying, no, it's still on my bank account, and I even called about it. And we usually don't see this problem. I do remember an MMO a while ago having some pretty bad account issues to start with. Chat can probably remind me which MMO that was. It's an older one. I don't think it's even active anymore. And I know, come on, $15 at the end of the day probably isn't that much for most people that are subscribing to MMOs anyway. They have that little bit of expendable income where $15 isn't going to break them. But I'm sure there are people, if you use PayPal, you're screwed on this one, I think. Because that's going to be a difficult transaction back and forth. Also, if you have $15 in your bank account budgeted, you use a checking account. I know there's people that throw money in savings and then only move into checking what they need to cover what they've written checks for. Yeah, and if you're that type of person where you budget like that, this could really screw you up if this isn't taken off in time to let some other checks clear. It's kind of a messy situation that if there's bounce fees and stuff, I can't imagine ESO and ZeniMax paying for them, but they caused them.
They did, and it's just one of those. Along the way, you get the impression, or not really the impression, but you get an understanding that this is a company that is sort of specialized in single-player RPGs, and they're just now getting into this, MMO online role-playing thing for the first time, and dealing with the monthly charges. And there's lots of little things along the way that they just aren't quite doing right. And it just feels like growing pains. And you would think in this day and age there would have been plenty of people out there with experience they could have brought in that would know how to do these kind of things and do them well and keep the company in good standing. Because right now they just keep getting beat up in public opinion right now. Everything they do just seems to not be right. And they're really taking a beating because of it.
Absolutely. One of the funniest bugs that I saw, though, was when you're doing quests and you're just moving along and you're reading your stuff and the voice acting and you go and you're having fun, and then all of a sudden some NPC decides to speak German to you. for no apparent reason. This NPC thinks I'm German. If anybody in chat, if you could confirm this one for me, if you play on EU mega server, I heard reports, Troy, did you, that it's just a mess on that side as far as the chat log goes, because all the different European languages, French, German, and English and whatnot, are just all on the same chat server, and so it's just a nightmare to try and read what's going on. Then you've got gold sellers already in game that can spam your chat box big enough that you can't find their name to blacklist or ban them.
Could you imagine? Zone chat is bad enough as it is. North American server, pretty much everybody's speaking English. It's bad enough as it is. Could you imagine having 3 or 4 or however many languages they've got going on at one time in your zone chat on top of the trollishness that typically is zone chat in a game?
At the end of the day,
it's just amazing.
At the end of the day, I still don't know if I like the game. I mean, that's pretty weird to say for somebody that's got like a $100 collector set here. I'm a huge Elder Scrolls guy, right? I mean, I have the Elder Scrolls Anthology set. I have the book thing that ZeniMax put together that comes out later this month that they did a limited run for. Chad is confirming that it is multi-language in the zones. And very true about the gold sellers. Oh, I know about the gold sellers. I just wanted to confirm on the EU if that was actually happening.
They have to do something about the gold
definitely
sellers'
have
ability to fill up the chat.
But at the end of the day, I still don't know if I like the game. Like, I'm enjoying it and having fun, but I don't know if I'm enjoying it on an MMO scale where I'm going to be willing to pay every month. And, man, we still don't know about Endgame, so we'll have to see. I'm still up in the air about Elder Scrolls Online. I'm still a little uncertain of its future and where it's going to fall subscription, free-to-play, you know, when that stuff starts to happen months from now. Or years from now, if ZeniMax is, I don't know, whatever they're planning to do. I still don't know if I enjoy the game. There's things that I really like about it. If you start reading quest text or listening to the voice acting, you'll get drawn in. If you're an Elder Scrolls person and you start reading that stuff, you will just get sucked right into there.
That part is done absolutely well. If you can't credit them with anything else, the voice acting is excellent through almost most of it. I haven't run across a single voice actor yet where I was like, oh my god, that doesn't really fit in. There's a few tone changes in between speeches where you could tell they probably recorded on separate days or something. But I mean, the story's there. Even all the little side quests out in the world, the main story quest, no matter what quest you pick up, there's a story. There's not just a, hey, just go do this just because. There's a reason, and there's something either interesting, epic, or funny going on around it. And it's really, really nice to be able to jump into a game and have reasons to do things, and not just, hey, I need 10 rat butts, go get them for me.
Yeah, and it's one of those, like, we hang out in Mumble with the Game Breaker Nation, and I'll sit there and play and hang out and chat with people in Mumble, but then I keep finding myself, like, going AFK in Mumble and going to a silent room because I'm just getting drawn into things the NPCs are saying and the way a story is progressing and the way things are playing out. That aspect, I couldn't agree with you anymore. It is really well done. It is quintessential Elder Scrolls the way that feels. I just don't know if long-term, you know, it feels to me a lot like Skyrim, which is the type of game I would play for 6 hours on one day and then maybe not touch for 5 or 6 days. And I don't think that works in an MMO game space, especially when you've got the subscription on top of it. There's a lot to still be seen here. Chat's bringing up the rollbacks, too. The surprise rollbacks of characters.
Yeah, I'm glad there are other. I thought that was just me for a long time.
Did it happen to you?
Do a quest? Yeah, I've had it happen to me several times. And it's never been like 5 or 6 levels or anything crazy like that. But I'll do a quest and go somewhere else or log out and log back in or switch zones or something and come back. And I still got this quest. And I'm like, I just did you. What's going on? I've already talked to all these people. I've already done all these things. I've got the piece of equipment that I got as a reward in my bag. But I've got to do the quest again because it just got rolled back. It happened to me in beta. I actually lost 2 or 3 levels.
Oh, jeez.
One weekend. I don't know what the heck happened, but
I just did you, Troy, 2014.
Man, yeah, I just did you. It's been more of that than I thought there would be. It's been happening to me probably once a day. I mean, it's definitely out there.
I'm definitely enjoying it. There's definitely things to be fixed, which we expected, but there's some things that we had no idea were going to be there and are. But I don't know long term if it's an MMO that I'm going to be there for a long time. I don't know. there's certainly a lot that I wish that I know ZeniMax right now is wishing wasn't happening, because it's like, do we really need one more piece of bad press? I mean, for God's sake, man, we're trying to launch a multi-million-dollar game on an IP that a bunch of people love. Damn, what's going on? Please get accounting on the phone. We don't know why credit cards are being billed, and we need to stop this now. I don't know. There's a lot up in the air. We'll keep you tuned and locked in on what's going on and changes. I know I'm going to watch my bank account just to see if the charge falls off or not. Happy launch day. Yeah. All right, moving on. We've got a lot more to talk about. Before we do, I want to talk to you about our sponsor for TWIMMO, and that's Audible. Audible.com/GameBreakers, the URL you've got to use if you want to get a free 30-day trial and a free audio book. Audible's been a sponsor of ours for a long time, and we couldn't be happier to have them. And in fact, I've pulled up some Elder Scrolls books for you. We've got the Infernal City Elder Scrolls Series 1, and then Lord of Souls, which is the second book in the series, both by Greg Keyes. If you haven't read these, they're really, really good books. I love them. There's some tie-ins to different pieces of the game in reference form. They're not like direct story over things, but check them out. Infernal City, and Lord of Souls is the second one. This first one actually has Whisper Sync. So if you've got your Kindle and you've got this book on the Kindle, you can get it on Audible and then switch back and forth from reading to having it read to you and back to reading. So you never have to set a good book down. Let's take a little listen to the Infernal City.
She said. Yes. I saw an Oblivion Gate open once, she said. When my father worked in Leaween, I saw things. It feels a little like that. But Martin's sacrifice, they say it can't happen again, and it doesn't look like a gate. It wasn't shaped like a thunderhead, Ifech realized, more like a fat cone, point down. Another wind was starting up, and on it something unbelievably foul. It doesn't matter what it is, he said.
Great series. Now, the books do tie to each other. It's a straight series, so if you are an Elder Scrolls fan, you like the lore, and you haven't read these, you really should. Pick up the Infernal City and then start from there. Audible's got the first two on there for you by Greg Keyes. Here's the URL you want to use again. That is audible.com/GameBreaker. Free month, and you could take one of those Elder Scrolls books as your free book. Pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. All right, moving on, we've got Guild Wars 2. We talked briefly about Guild Wars 2 and the wardrobe stuff last week that they're implementing in their April patch. I showed pre-show the wardrobe trailer to get everybody up to date on that one. But this week we got, just 2 days ago, news on the Mega server. Sorry, I just like saying that. I can't.
Dun, dun, dun.
I can't help it. The Mega server. So if you go and read the entire piece, we wrote it up on GameBreaker TV. We have the link to the whole explanation on the official Guild Wars 2 site. If you read through it, it kind of sounds like server mergers without a server merger. That's the feeling I got, right? It's, we realize there's population issues in some areas. Here's what we're going to do to fix it. You still play Guild Wars 2 a lot? I know you were into it for a while.
I was into it for a while. I jump in off and on to check out different living story aspects and things like that. I'm not a hardcore Guild Wars 2 player right now, but a lot of the features they're rolling out right now are making me interested. We talked about this last week, whether or not these are the changes that are going to bring back players who maybe walked away, that these are kind of geared more towards existing players. But some of the stuff like this, I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, this is sort of a server merger without having to say, we're merging servers. But this is also a nice feature, and I mean, as MMO people, how many times do we have conversations that servers are so just...
Oh no, I think we've lost Troy. We'll try to get him back as his internet's acting up a little bit. So the Mega server, here's the deal. Instead of destroying the servers, merging them down, and doing whatever, they're actually creating...
prehistoric at this point. That winter server...
Oh, you're back. You're back.
Oh, man. Comcast. They give me Comcast.
So I was explaining the mega server itself. What it is a back-end system that actually starts taking into account the way you play. So it's basing decisions on the language that you speak, the content that you like to play, people in your party, people in your guild. It's taking a lot of these into consideration, and instead of putting you in overflow servers or things like that, it's actually throwing you into instances of a zone that are more populated with the people that play the same way you do. So think of it like when I read it, Troy, I don't know if you got the same feeling, but when I read it, it kind of felt like a PvE matchmaking system almost, where it said, this is the way you want to play and the people you play with, and we can see them all. And to ensure that there's no dead areas, we can spawn as many instances of this zone as we need and start putting people together across worlds into these zones based on these factors like their playstyle and stuff. Pretty badass system, especially if you're like the cat that plays at 3 in the morning and nobody else is on. It's going to start lumping everybody together to make the zones populated for things like the Living World series with people that are playing at 3 a.m. all over the world.
And it's really this should help liven up some of the zones, because there are zones that become hotbeds depending on what the living story is and what's happening and which zones are having kind of hosting the living story at the time. So some of these lower levels or zones outside of that tend to be lower level zones, kind of get barren and empty, and you kind of really feel like you're playing a single player game all by yourself. So hopefully this goes a long way to, like you said, filling up these zones and giving you people that want to do the same kinds of things you do in the same zone with you at the same time. Now, ESO kind of gave this same kind of PR speak when they first started their kind of mega server deal too, that you were going to get put in with people that you play with and people and people that do the things you kind of do. And yet every time I go to group with somebody who's on my friends list or in my guild, I have to zone into them. So what I want to keep an eye on is, does it actually do that? Is it really going to kind of keep me in with my friends and people who really want me to do? Or is it just lumping everybody into the same server together because this one's full and this one's empty?
Yeah, and here's from a quote from the actual write-up on the official Guild Wars 2 site. The biggest benefit of this new system is that you'll always find other players to adventure with in an open world, no matter what time of day it is. There are some maps in the game that tend to have smaller populations in them on each world. With mega server technology, these lower population maps will be full of players within the same from the same global region, so you can always have a great experience and play any type of content in those maps. People online during non-peak hours will be able to play in populated zones with other players, since they'll be sorted together to create fuller maps. Now, there is an important disclaimer on this, though. Please note that the mega server system will not change region restrictions, so you still will be grouped by North American or European server regions. It's not going to override that, which I think a lot of people would have been super happy if it did. But within your own server region, this does kind of breathe new life into a lot of the zones that right now are looking pretty barren on some servers.
Something like this, especially as a game gets older, you need things like, server mergers always get a bad rap, all the games failing. But at the end of the day, if you're in zones by yourself constantly all day, every day, you're not going to be having as much fun. This is an MMO. You want to play with other people online. So something like this should really help bring people together and should help reinvigorate the game. This sounds like another really good step. They're making a lot of really nice small steps towards kind of reinvigorating their game. And I like where they're going with a lot of the things they're doing.
And they kind of quietly did it, too. Like, behind the scenes, they were like, you know what? Elder Scrolls comes out in April. Instead of making a marketing push, let's go and revamp a lot of things that our current players have asked for years now. And let's redo some of these things. I couldn't ask for more. I mean, if you're a Guild Wars 2 fan, damn, they're kind of nailing this. Wardrobe system was a really big one that we talked about last week that everybody was all over, with the dies being account-wide and all that stuff, too. The big question that I had was, would you still be able to play with people on your home world in this mega server?
They say yes, that you should. That's going to be part of the grouping, I think. because they said somewhere in there that you should be seeing more people from your own world too, as these maps kind of sort of start getting instances together and everything kind of becomes one big server. So it sounds like they're not trying to separate you from the people you already know. They're just trying to bring more people in for you to play with on top of that.
Very slick, very slick. Somebody in chat is asking, how do you pick your server on a mega server? You still pick your server. What the mega server is doing in the background is it's generating maps of each zone. So as you go into a zone, it's taking all of your attributes, what language you speak, the members of your guild, the members of your party, and when you zone in, it's trying to put you in the same instance of that map. So mega servers is kind of a weird word here in the way that it's being used. It's actually the zone map generator itself that is doing this. You still pick a server, and that's why I asked the question, can you still play with people on your home server? Yeah, you can, and that is one of the things it takes into consideration, where if Troy and I are we're on Yak's Bend playing, and we're out in a zone, and you're in Yak's Bend, when you zone into that, as long as that area isn't full, the mega server will see that, oh, you're friends with Troy and you're friends with Mike, and they're in instance 15 of this zone. We're going to put you into instance 15 of this zone, provided it's not full.
To explain it maybe even a little clearer, they're not making the home realms go away. They're more so tying them all together,
right,
than necessarily deleting them all and making everybody on one big. They call it a mega server, and yeah, it kind of is, but it's more so just tying all the realms together where everybody can just sort of play together. Because you're still going to have to pick a home world when you create a character, because dub is still going to be centric around which home world you are, and those home worlds are still going to be competing against each other. And they haven't released all the details on exactly any changes that's going to come with that. But when it comes to dub, you're still going to be fighting for your home world. It's just that in PvE, it's just sort of one big open world where everybody can just play together and not have to go guest on another server and all the other nonsense that gets in the way of being able to play with other people.
Yeah, if you play World of Warcraft, Connected Realms is kind of what this is similar to, more than ESO's mega server. I would liken it more to WoW's Connected Realms. Speaking of dub, a lot of us were okay, well, how does this sounds like kind of a nightmare for dub. How is this going to impact that? We don't know yet. They're going to be explaining that over time. Their exact quote, later this week we'll be discussing how our transition to the mega server system will affect the timing of world bosses and some changes we're making to support this. We'll also be discussing the long-term plan for guilds and dub in relation to our mega server system. So check back each day this week for more information. Don't have that more information yet. This launches in the April server pack. What's that?
The guild article is up. They have kind of extrapolated a little bit on more of what.
Yay, Comcast. The feature pack launches in April, and initially they're going to be, ArenaNet is doing the 1 through 15 zones, the main cities, and the PvP lobby.
They're talking about with guilds and WW.
You and your internet, man.
Man, I swear. Am I back?
You're back. So I was just saying that initially they're only doing the 1 through 15 zones, the main cities, and the PvP lobby. The rest will come over time as they keep updating and gathering information. Sounds really cool, man. The April update is, I got to be honest, it's actually enticing me to jump in.
It's going to be worth at least going back and looking at it.
Yeah, it's been a few months since I played, but they're getting me here. So kudos, ArenaNet. Next up, you might have heard of a crazy cat named David Jordson. EverQuest Next, EQ Next, Landmark.
I think so. The name rings a bell.
It rings a bell. Sony Online Entertainment. Well, Mr. Jordson did an interview with IGN this week where he expressed the opinion that all MMOs should be free to play. Every single one.
That's a pretty bold statement coming from a man in his position as well.
Well, Sony's already committed to that, right? I mean, when EQ Landmark and EQ Next were announced, it wasn't long after the alpha began for Landmark that Smedley came out and said every MMO that Sony Online Entertainment does from now on will be free to play. So we already heard that. This kind of just backs that up. Here's the direct quote from IGN. There's nothing wrong with the subscription model. I have personal opinions, which I'll go ahead and share because I'm just that cocksure of myself. I think that free-to-play is the way that gamers should want their MMOs to be. So not only does he think they should be free-to-play, but he thinks that us gamers should want all games to be free-to-play, should want their MMOs to be. And the reason I think that is that if we don't do a really good job and we don't entertain the player, we don't make a dime. And it's hard to argue with that portion of his logic, right? If we don't entertain the player, we don't make a dime. Well, in most cases, that's true. If you can't retain them, I don't know if I want every MMO to be free-to-play, though.
There's something to be said for the subscription model. When free-to-play really started getting big, I jumped on the free-to-play bandwagon pretty hardcore, and I've been pretty critical of ESO and WildStar coming out with their subscription models, and in a market that really just seems to say, hey, this is what the consumer wants, we want free-to-play. There's definitely pros and cons to both. Whether or not, I mean, we're still relatively early in the kind of the free-to-play genre in the Western market. It's still rather young. I mean, we don't have just decades of experience with it. So I mean, companies are still learning. You see companies like Turbine who are finding out that models that worked earlier on maybe aren't working. Sort of as free-to-play kind of grows and progresses and evolves. And so, it's still a bit of a filling out process right now when it comes to free-to-play games, because we see free-to-play games come and go all the time that they think, well, we're going to launch free-to-play, so that means buckets of money for us. And then, a couple of months later, they're just gone. And we're seeing a lot of that, and we're going to continue to until everybody sort of gets, an idea of what's really going to work for them. And the biggest thing is everybody needs to figure out their own thing. What works for one company is not going to work for another company. Even within that company, what works for one game is not necessarily going to work for another game. But I think the biggest thing out of all this right now is it wasn't that long ago that I considered SOE one of the most out-of-touch companies with its customer base that was out there. And now every time Dave Jorson opens his mouth, I can't do anything except stop and say, you're right. He's absolutely right. I like what he's saying. I like where he's going. And you get the impression whenever he says something that he's saying what he really feels, and the direction of the company is really, and the cat's getting in the way. Technical difficulty stream is hardcore today, ladies and gentlemen. But you just get the impression that this is truly how they feel. It's not just PR speak, and this is the direction that they want to go, and they want to make entertaining games, and they want people to give them money because they enjoy the heck out of their games. And that sounds spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, and I can go with you on a lot of that, and I can definitely see, Georgeson's opinion here. Obviously, it's translated into the way they're going to run their business going forward. EQ Next is free, and then Smedley said anything after that that's a MMO is going to be free too. I'm not necessarily sold on the idea of gamers should want all their MMOs to be free to play. And I've said this a few different times on TWIMMO or to some different people that I was talking to during interviews or whatever, that I feel like we all want our MMOs to be free to play until we find the ones we really like, and then we secretly wish it was a subscription model.
Yeah, definitely to an extent.
Yeah, we kind of like, I really like this game. Yeah, and I kind of want you guys that are maybe going to play for 1 week and then not play for a month or so. I wish there was a subscription, so I didn't have to buy these things from the cash shop. Give me a $15 subscription. I think the market supports all three in my book: the free-to-play, the subscription-based, and the buy-to-play. Whether you like a particular model over the other is fine, but there's games that I feel have definitely stuck or decided on a model and have really executed, and then there's some stinkers, right? Final Fantasy XIV, I think if it was a free-to-play game, I don't even think I would play it. Because of the way the crafting system works and the harvesting system and the multi-class system works, there would just be way too much that would be eligible for microtransactions that it would nickel and dime the hell out of me, and I don't think I would play it. I prefer Final Fantasy XIV to be subscription-based. The Secret World, this is actually a really good one, right? I enjoy the Secret World. I like it story-wise. I like the atmosphere and everything. The combat is a little for me, but I can look past it because I enjoy the experience itself. It was not a subscription game to me. And granted, they launched with everything, right? A box fee, a cash shop, a subscription, and that tiger behind you is just trying to maul you.
I want to throw her down.
When it went buy to play with a cash shop, I thought that was the best thing that game could have done, and probably should have launched that way and been similar to Guild Wars 2 in that respect. But then there's some free-to-play companies that I've seen that it's just ridiculous what they do with the cash shop. And God, don't start me on RNG freaking treasure boxes.
That's the biggest thing in cash shops I wish didn't exist, was the lock boxes and the buying the keys and the randomness. That's such crap. Give me something I want to buy. Give me something awesome. Give me something shiny. Give me something that's going to make my game more fun. Don't restrict my content, and don't give me stuff that's going to be random. I'm going to give you X amount of dollars, and I may get something that ain't worth freaking half of a gold piece in the auction house. I mean, come on.
Yeah, David Georgeson said it this way too. He said, we're effectively talking about free-to-play MMO developers, or MMO developers in general. We're effectively street performers. We go out there and sing and dance, and if we do a good job, people throw coins into the hat. And I think that's the way games should be, because paying $60 up front to take a gamble on whether the game is good or not, you don't get that money back. So if you buy a turkey, you've just wasted your money. With free-to-play, you get to go in, take a look at it, and find out it's entirely our responsibility to make sure you're entertained. That's the way things should be, in my opinion, with free-to-play. And from his standpoint as a developer, I could not be happier that he is saying that, because it's exactly the mentality that I have. I just don't agree with the very first portion, that we should want all of them to be free to play. But that I also understand that I might be a little jaded, and you might be a little, not jaded, a little biased on this one, because by the nature of us writing for Game Breaker and Free to Play and all the other sites that you and I contribute different things to, there aren't too many games, regardless of model, that we don't at least get to get our hands on before we have to make a financial decision. So you and I may be like a little biased there, where the average player may have to shell out $60 before they ever get their hands on it. So I may be not really taking that into account. I think there's room for all three. To be honest, if I have to pick one personally for me that I like the most, I'm still a subscription model guy. Although I think certain games like Guild Wars 2 and The Secret World have adopted buy-to-play in a really good way. And I think there's games out there like Path of Exile and other games that are doing free-to-play in a really good way. Sony Online Entertainment is starting to turn the curve, because they used to be terrible with their cash shops and things. Slowly turning a curve there, too. I don't know. If I had to only have one, though, I think I'd still fall back on subscription, just because I like knowing what I'm going to get and how much it's going to cost, and not having to worry about playing the gambling game on items. What about you?
Well, I think the best aspect of the whole thing is that everybody likes something different.
Yep.
And there's something out there for everybody right now. Like you said, everybody going one way or another is a huge mistake. When everything was submodel, you had the one big World of Warcraft and some other games, had good player bases and things, but there was this one huge monster. And as you're seeing the ability to choose, you can buy the box and play the game, or you can just play free and buy things here and there, or you can still buy the box and pay your submodel. The MMO player base is starting to spread out a little bit, and they're starting to get the ability to kind of play the games they want to play.
There's also the danger on the flip side of this, though.
Play and pay the way that they want to.
Yeah, there's also the danger on the flip side here, though, that if that's the mentality that the developer takes, fine. But so often I've seen free-to-play development lead to money-making mechanics over actual gameplay. So yes, I agree with the argument that Dave Georgeson brings up, is that, hey, we need to create a compelling game, otherwise people aren't going to stick around. And that's a nice mindset to have, but I've seen where that mindset is totally disregarded, and in fact, in some Sony Online games in the past, it's been disregarded, and it seemed like it was more catered around making the money. So I don't think making everything free-to-play necessarily leads to better games in the end. Unless you start with the mindset that Dave Georgeson has. I'll tell you what, though, this does make me even more excited for EQ Next, right? I'm not all that pumped about Landmark. I've been in it a few times because I bought the Founders Pack, the Trailblazer thingy. But I'm not into creation games. But this mentality and things that Dave Georgeson has said and John Smedley have said, I'm getting really excited for EQ Next. Really excited.
Yeah, like I said, with the way that they're saying their company approaches now, and sort of the attitude they're taking towards things, you just really get the feeling they've got an opportunity with EQ Next to really make a statement in the MMO marketplace. And it's been a long time since a game has been able to put itself in a position to do that. And EQ Next has that opportunity. I mean, it's going to be sandboxing. It's going to have all these other elements. These new SOE approach to free to play. We want to make sure that it's fun, and you want to give us money because it's fun, not because we created some sort of paywall or something that you really need to give us money for. So it's really going to be interesting to see as we get closer to EQ Next, because like you said, Landmark is Landmark. It's it's a really shiny Minecraft at the end of the day. I want to see what they do with EQ Next and what kind of tidal waves they can create when that game launches if they do it the way that they sound like that they're going to do it.
Yeah, and there's a couple of companies that are doing obviously really well and really intelligently at it. It's hard to argue with the way League of Legends Cash Shop works. It's hard to argue with Path of Exile, although there's some changes coming to that I'll have to see how they implement. There's Smite is a pretty good one too. I see chat throwing Smite up as one of the good free-to-play models out there. There's definitely good models, but there's more abusive models than good models if you actually lined it all up. And Sony Online's has a bunch of different things going on there too, where it's not only are they free to play, but there's also ways for players to actually earn money, right, with their whole player studio stuff. So there's some really creative things going on in the free to play market. I like it. If I just had to pick one and say, this is it, this is what I'm sticking to, it would still be sub at this point. Although, who knows? You mentioned it's free-to-play being in its infancy. As it grows here in the West, I might start to change my mind based on the way some newer free-to-play models are going. But I know what I'm getting with a sub right now, except with Elder Scrolls, because they're putting a horse in the cash shop already. So I don't know what I'm getting with my
for
sub
money,
there.
And then we're not going to tell you what you're going to get in 30 days. But,
right.
Here, give us some money.
We'll see. We'll see.
Did we go back to Elder Scrolls? I'm sorry.
Mr. Troy Blackburn, you can follow him on the Twitters at NoobFridge, NoobFridge. Thank you for joining me, sir. As always, it's a pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed it quite a bit when I was here off and on.
I'm Mike Byrne. You can follow me and my crooked camera today on Twitter at MagicMan1. That's MagicManN1. Of course, make sure you're following Gamebreaker TV on Facebook, Twitter, and come on over to the page to stay up to date on the latest and greatest in the world of MMORPGs and all the other MMOs, regardless of payment model. Until next time, stay safe. We'll see you out on the servers.
Gamebreaker TV.